Hey, Bastish BF for 64K and welcome to another episode of Compilation Nation. And if you've never watched Compilation Nation before, basically I look at a compilation of games, whether it's in digital form or physical, new or old. We'll take a look at the whole collection, all the menus and all the games. So today's episode is going to be the first of the Konami 50th anniversary compilations. This first one is called Arcade Classics. It's on the Switch and it features 8 classic arcade games from the 1980s. So let's first take a look at the menus and the extras. So this is the first in the anniversary collection. This is called Arcade Classics. Got a bunch of 80s arcade games from Konami. Let's go through them. We've got 1981 Scramble. We've got 1985's Twin Bee, 1985 Nemesis, 1986 Life Force, 1987 Typhoon, 1988 Haunted Castle, 1988 Vulcanvention, and 1988's Thundercross. So if you pause the game, you've got a few simple settings. You've got a save load feature, which is always useful. Under game settings, you can change the lives. Under display settings, you've got a few horrible aspect ratios you can choose from, and a few other little minor tweaks. And yeah, we got the bonus book. This is all the extras. Let's dive straight into it and check what they got. First up, you got a little history of where these 8 games fit in with the rest of Konami's arcade releases in the 80s. And next we got game showcase and design documents. This is just like any other art book or making of book where you get a little bit of behind the scenes with some artwork about each game. And then next we have the selection of musical scores. This is the most disappointing one out of all of them. This is literally the music score. I thought it was going to be the actual soundtracks to the games. So that's pretty weak in my opinion. And the developer interviews, this is another bit of a shortfall. You can read this in about 1 minute. It looks like they interviewed these guys over the course of their lunch break. Okay, so at the end I'm going to do a positive and negatives of this compilation. But before we do that, let's go over to the real reason why you're watching this. Okay, so now let's check out the games. The first game up is Scramble, the 1981 arcade venture that was way ahead of the competition at the time. It's a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up of sorts where blowing up fuel tanks to keep your ship going, as well as dodging rockets and asteroids and the like, which was thrown at you at a deadly pace. I love this game. Its simple risk-reward style gameplay is as good as now as it ever was, with great graphics and sound for a 1981 release, and I pumped endless amounts of quarters into this game, which definitely could be considered the groundwork for future Konami-style shoot-'em-ups such as the Gradius series. Next up is Twin Bee, an exclusive Japanese 1985 release. This time we got a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up, or cute-'em-up as they would later be known as, where this weird, vibrant, cartoony world jumps to life with fun, classic, sugary Konami music. It's delightful. Blasting ships and collecting power-ups is all par for the course, as well as the inevitable boss battles. The graphics are bright and over the top in a parody of sorts, and you'll see if you play the later games in the series, which I highly recommend. This is a good starting point if you've never played a Twin Bee game before. It's far from the best in the series though, but it's still worth a play for its unique take on a cliche even then genre. The third game is Nemesis, released in 1985, and it's the first game in the long-running Gradius series. I played this game a lot back in 1987 on my Commodore 64 and then a little bit later on the NES, and always enjoyed it even though the game is pretty damn difficult. Another horizontal scrolling shoot-'em-up with pretty cool upgrade system, allowing you to customize what you want to upgrade, like speed, more firepower, shields, etc. There are 7 stages to battle through, and yes, it will be a battle. It is real tough, and if you're new to the genre, I would suggest you start with another game in this collection. Otherwise your frustration levels might just max out. All in all though, a great game with good music and graphics, and a pretty good start to a long-running series. Next we got 1986's Life Force, or Salamander, which is a spin-off of the Gradius series. Life Force, which is not to be confused with that dodgy, guilty pleasure sci-fi movie romp of the same name, cast you as a pilot named Lord British. I'll let that sink in for a bit. I think somebody at Konami development team was a big fan of Lord British, aka Richard Garriott, and his Ultima series, because there's no way that's a coincidence. Anyway, more horizontal and vertically scrolling shoot 'em up action is in the cards. The power-up system is way easier to use, as is the game's difficulty. Very nice graphics and cool music make this a much better entry point into the Gradius series than Nemesis, if you want to start playing the series in full. And for our fifth game, we've got Typhoon, which was released in 1987. The game also goes under the name of Ajax, and it's a mixture of 3D Space Harrier type sequences and scrolling shoot 'em up levels. The 3D graphics for the time were really good, and it was a great showcase game for its graphics capabilities. This is a bit of a forgotten Konami game, I feel, and if it wasn't for the fact that I played the Commodore 64 version to death as a kid, I don't think I would ever have known about it. It's cool to see obscure games like this in these compilations, and that's what actually draws me to them, besides the fact that it's a pretty good and enjoyable shoot 'em up to sink your teeth into. Next is the odd man out in this collection, being Haunted Castle, released in 1988. So this is sort of a spin-off of the Castlevania series, with you again playing Simon Belmont, whipping the undead to death. Why you have a side-scroller action game mixed in with what is essentially a shoot 'em up collection doesn't make any sense to me. Why not include Konami's Jackal instead? Having never played this before, I thought it was crazy for them not to add this to the upcoming Castlevania collection. Then I played it. Yeah, it's mediocrity at its best. Everything that makes Castlevania cool, like exploration, backtracking, figuring out puzzles, vast castles to explore, are all gone, obviously, as this is an arcade game. So what you're left with is essentially just a really annoyingly hard side-scroller that I honestly didn't have much fun with. The graphics are good, as is the music, but overall I'm just not a fan of this game. I understand why it's not going to be included in the Castlevania collection now, as there are way better games in this massive series to choose from than this one. And back to the good stuff with Vulcan Venture, the second game in the Gradius series and released in 1988. This shoot 'em up jumps back to using Nemesis's upgrade your ship to your taste mechanic, and features 8 massive stages to try and conquer. The graphics in this are amazing, as is the music, really pushing you to see what's around the next corner. Gameplay wise, it's a much better refined version of Nemesis, and is still my favorite in the Gradius series, a must play game in the collection. And finally, the 8th game, Thundercross, also released in 1988, and you guessed it, it's a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. Out of all the shooters, yeah, this one feels the most like a modern shooter and is an excellent game if you've never tried it. Big luscious graphics and fast, massive, destructive gameplay. This represents the type of shoot 'em up that I love most, with good old fashioned bosses lurking all over the place. You also have a smart bomb in this one that can destroy everything on the screen, which is an option I love, especially when things get out of control. An excellent game and a worthy addition to this collection. Okay, so let's round it all up and let me tell you what I think of this compilation as a whole. Let's start off with the positives. Number 1, I really like the great selection of arcade shoot 'em ups. Almost all of these are top quality titles. And at number 2, the $25 seems a bit much for a digital compilation to me, but that works out to be just over $3 a game, which is actually a pretty good deal. Number 3, these are the arcade versions, so you have the best versions of these games available. And now on to the negatives. Number 1, why include Haunted Castle? It's mediocre and sticks out like a sore thumb in this otherwise great arcade shoot 'em up collection. It just makes no sense. Number 2, the options are minimal at best. It's not anything on the level that M2 does for Sega or SNK's 40th anniversary collection. And considering this is part of Konami's 50th anniversary, which is a major deal, this is really lackluster. Number 3, the bonus content, which I was really looking forward to, is weak. And it looks like it was slapped together in 2 hours over a bunch of drinks at a local ramen shop. Bare bones extra info on the games, the actual music score, not the soundtracks, and a weak attempt at an interview at the end results in a completely forgettable extra section. So my overall verdict is, if you've never played these games before, then this is a really good selection of shoot 'em ups if you ignore Haunted Castle, and is worth playing. However, if you're a hardcore Konami fan, then this is going to leave you pretty disappointed, just due to the very lackluster effort put into this package overall. For me, it's worth it just for the games alone, but the ultimate choice is obviously up to you. So as of making this video, this compilation is only available digitally. I hope to see like some sort of physical version available in the future for various formats, but the formats are available on Xbox One, PS4, Switch and PC, so you got covered on all grounds. And thanks for joining me, BastishB at 64K. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!